You see a headline about a major industrial fire, and you probably think it's just this one big, shocking event, right? But what if it's not? We're going to dive deep into the Rungta Industries disaster. And what we're going to find is that most catastrophes like this, they aren't sudden at all. They're built, piece by piece, one broken safety link at a time. So, let's set the scene. It's November 2025 in Gorakhpur, India. A chemical fire breaks out at one factory, but this thing sends a shockwave through the entire industrial zone. I mean, it didn't just damage one plant, it paralyzed over 350 other businesses. We're not just talking about a fire here. This was a full-blown economic shutdown. Which begs the question, right? How does that even happen? How does something that should have been a small, maybe even manageable accident, how does it just spiral completely out of control and become this massive, headline-grabbing disaster? Well, the answer isn't some single giant explosion. It's more like a chain reaction, a cascade of failures where every single safety net, one after another, just gives way. And it all starts with just one tiny little spark. Okay, so our story kicks off in the Gorakhpur Industrial Development Authority, or GIDA as it's known. And this is where a single fire, get this, burned for over 25 hours straight. It literally brought an entire industrial hub to its knees. I mean, just look at how fast this thing escalated. The fire starts in a pipeline at 4 a.m. By morning, it's already completely out of control. By the afternoon, things are so bad that the authorities have to order a shutdown of somewhere between 350 and 600 nearby factories. Think about that. They were trying to stop a massive chain reaction. It took a full 25 hours, plus a huge emergency response, to finally get it under control. So what was that initial spark exactly? Let's break down the immediate physical cause of this fire. You know, the very first domino that tipped over. The chemical at the heart of all this is called hexane. And here's the thing you have to understand about hexane. Its flash point is below minus 20 degrees Celsius. What does that mean? It means this stuff can catch fire in freezing temperatures. So we're not just talking flammable. This is on another level of volatile. Okay, so here's the simple but terrifying physics of what went down. You've got this pipeline connected to a huge 50,000-liter underground tank, and it starts leaking hexane. Now, because hexane is so volatile, it doesn't just make a puddle. Nope. It instantly forms this heavy vapor cloud that just hugs the ground. All that cloud needs to do is find an ignition source, and a tiny spark from some electrical gear is more than enough. And then, boom, a flash fire ignites the entire cloud, and the fire just traces itself right back to the source of the leak. But here's the crucial point. Leaks happen in industrial settings. That's a known risk. So the real story here isn't just about the spark. It's about all the layers of failure, the things that were supposed to work but didn't, that let that one little spark turn into an absolute catastrophe. And this is really the heart of it all. And that brings us to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? A leak is a known risk. So where were the safety systems? You know, the expensive, high-tech stuff that is literally designed to prevent this exact scenario from ever happening. Well, the official root cause analysis actually lays it all out for us. And it's not just one thing. It's 3 totally distinct levels of failure. First, you've got the physical cause, the solvent leak and ignition. Simple enough. Then you dig a little deeper and you find the human and process failures, basically maintenance lapses, people not following safety protocols. But at the very bottom, and this is the big one, you have a total systemic failure of all the plant's detection, suppression, and containment systems. So let's take layer 1. It's pretty straightforward, the physical failure. A piece of equipment, a gasket, a flange, maybe a bad weld. It just gives way. The chemical gets out. This is pretty much the starting point for almost any industrial accident you can think of. Okay, then we hit layer 2, the human and process failures. Now, reports suggest this leak happened right after some maintenance work, and that's a huge red flag. It means that proper safety checks, they were almost certainly just ignored. There's this absolutely critical step called a pre-startup safety review. It's a final check designed to catch exactly this kind of thing. And it looks like that crucial step was just skipped entirely. And that brings us to the third and honestly the most catastrophic layer of failure, the safety systems themselves. These are your last resort, the automated engineered defenses that are supposed to kick in when the equipment fails and the people mess up. They're the fail-safe. And in this case, they were either offline, totally insufficient, or just plain broken. When you look at the systemic breakdown, it's just stunning. The gas detectors, they didn't trigger an early alarm. The automatic foam or deluge system that should have doused the fire, non-functional or totally overwhelmed. The on-site emergency team couldn't even isolate the leak. They had to call in outside experts. And to top it all off, the plant's very location, its siting, was a failure. It was packed way too close to other high-risk units, amplifying the danger for everyone. I mean, every single safety net was gone. Now, this cascade of failures, it didn't just happen in a vacuum. It was the direct result of just ignoring well-established safety laws. We're talking about rules that were clearly and repeatedly broken. Take the Factories Act of 1948, for example. I mean, this law is crystal clear. It says the plant has to be enclosed to stop explosive vapors from accumulating. So what happened here? A heavy vapor cloud formed and found an ignition source. It's about as direct a violation as you can get of one of the oldest, most fundamental safety laws we have. And it's not just that one. Then you've got the petroleum rules from 2002. These rules specifically cover Class A petroleum products, like hexane. The law is simple. Pipelines carrying this stuff must be properly maintained and tested. And what happened? The pipeline failed. I mean, it's a textbook case of inadequate maintenance. The rules were there, they were on the books, they just weren't followed. So when you break rules on this kind of scale, well, the consequences are always going to be severe. And that brings us to the very high cost of what was, let's be clear, an entirely preventable disaster. Right now, the company's facing a kind of three-pronged legal attack. You've got potentially massive environmental fines. You've got the very real possibility of jail time for those responsible. And you've got the risk of their license being suspended or even canceled altogether. Let's actually put some numbers on this. The environmental fine alone could be up to 5 crore rupees. This comes from a legal idea called the polluter pays principle, which is exactly what it sounds like. You make the mess, you pay to clean it up. And, this isn't just about money. For safety violations that cause an accident like this, we're talking about a maximum prison sentence of up to 7 years. That's a really stark reminder that this kind of negligence doesn't just have financial costs. It has serious personal consequences. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, the domino effect of the consequences is just immense. The factory was gutted, so business operations are halted, who knows for how long. Hundreds of neighboring businesses were forced to shut down, toxic stuff was released into the air, and now, on top of all that, there's this legal reckoning. Multi-crore fines, potential jail time, losing their license. And all of it started from a single leak that should have been stopped in its tracks. Maybe the single most important detail in this whole story is that somehow, miraculously, there were 0 casualties. No one died. But that just raises a really chilling question, doesn't it? This whole disaster was a massive warning shot across the bow. Will the next one be so lucky?